Today we got a panel of people here that are going to give us some information on some of the changes in cleaning processes and some new technologies that are out there that you might be interested in relation to cleaning office buildings and facilities during COVID times. First, we have Jay Mandelstam with Denver Commercial Property Services, then Lavina Friday with Belfour, and Sarah Haynes, Steve Katavas, and Rich Fair with Conservawatt Lighting. I believe the best thing here is we'll do a couple of minutes of question and answer after each panelist. And then at the end, we will open it up for questions and answers at the end, and we can stay open as long as we need to. Please use the chat box for your questions, or at the end, we'll open up you can open up the microphone and ask your questions. So Kelly, unless you have anything else, I shall turn it over to Jay Mandelstam with Denver Commercial Property Services.
All right, well, thanks,
Jay,
Pat.
it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me join the call here today and joining this great team. While I'm booting up, if I can get the technology right, let's see if a little slide deck comes up. If somebody out there can nod if they're seeing.
I got you, Jay. I have your slide.
Deal. All right, should be full screen now. Well, thanks again for having me on the group. At this point in the pandemic, I'm sure everybody out there is an infectious disease expert. We've all been watching the news, we've all been reading the media, and I'm sure everybody at this point is an expert. But I think it's always good to go back and review. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes here with this slide to talk about a couple of different things. Since the pandemic has started, we've heard all sorts of terms about deep cleaning versus disinfecting, and everybody's using the terms interchangeably. So just to kind of get a level set, I thought we should talk about some vocabulary and make sure everybody's on the same page. Cleaning really talks about removing unwanted organisms or substances from your environment. That's what we do when we clean. We take stuff away from the environment that we don't want. Disinfecting is very different. Disinfecting has a very specific definition, and it means killing organisms that are in your environment. So it's a really important distinction, and I always like to start these discussions by saying that the CDC tells us and has told us from the outset of this pandemic that both approaches are completely appropriate for dealing with the coronavirus. So there are different ways to deal with this virus. You can remove it from your environment. That's one way. And then, of course, you can kill it in the environment. Most people these days, and I believe what you're on this call to hear about, are various ways to kill the coronavirus, either in the air, on a surface, from person-to-person transmission, from surface transmission. We all want to kill the virus, but I always like to start by saying routine cleaning is also very effective against this virus. If you go to the CDC website, it talks about routine cleaning. So what that means is just a microfiber and a cleaning chemical spraying on a surface that contains the virus can be wiped off and removed from the surface with routine cleaning chemicals. We all know how incredibly infectious this virus is. We all know how deadly it can be. But despite those two things, from a removal and a killing standpoint, it actually is an easy virus to remove from a surface, and it's an easy virus to kill relative to other viruses that have come out over the years. So you can be doing either in your commercial office space or in your home, for that matter, to mitigate the spread of the virus. I'm going to talk specifically about disinfecting right now. Not all disinfectants are created equal. A lot of things have claims on them to kill the virus, but I always like to start with the fact that the EPA is really the certifying organization within our government. And unless something says it's been certified by the EPA and gives you a certification number, you cannot really be sure that it's going to be effective. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. There are all sorts of emerging products as this pandemic has lingered with us. There are all sorts of products that come to market that truly are effective, but the EPA has not gotten around to certifying it yet. So we all know the government doesn't always move at the pace we'd like it to. But if you want to be 100% guaranteed sure that a particular disinfectant will work on this virus, then it needs to have an EPA certification. And whoever is selling you this disinfectant or whoever is claiming it will work should be able to provide that certification number, where you can go online to the EPA website. Interesting, at least it's interesting to me, the EPA certifies these things and they classify them on their website. This is a little fun fact. They classify it in the same category as pesticides. So these disinfectants that work on the coronavirus, they really do kill. They are classified on the same category of the EPA website as pesticides. Now, in order for something to work, it has to be applied the way the EPA certified it, and it has to be on that surface for a certain amount of time. That's called the contact time. Now, every disinfectant has a different contact time. You may be working with a certified disinfectant. You may spray it on a surface. If it's got, for instance, a 4-minute kill time, that means it needs to be wet on that surface for 4 minutes in order for the EPA to certify that it'll kill the virus. So if you spray it and wipe it up 30 seconds later, even though it is a certified disinfectant, if you've not given it the proper kill time, it's not going to kill the virus. So that's another thing for vocabulary purposes, or when you talk with your providers, you want to make sure they not only have the proper product that's been certified, but that they're using it properly, because the greatest product in the world, which is not given proper dwell time or contact time, is not going to be effective. At least not effective in killing the virus. It may remove the virus because you wipe it up. Other things to consider as you're talking about mitigation strategies in your building and different approaches to mitigation, you might want to consider, is the product sprayed in the air? Do we have to wipe it up afterwards? Does it leave a residue on the surface? Does that residue form any type of, or create any type of harm to the substances that it hits? And it all comes down to the way you're going to apply that disinfectant. So there are different things, and I think there are going to be some other presenters that talk about some specific ones. So I'm just going to hit the highlights here. Basically, you can apply disinfectant manually or in a mechanical fashion. Oops, I think I jumped the gun with my slide. So we all know what mechanical, or excuse me, we all know what manual application is. We've all seen a bottle with a trigger sprayer. You point it at a surface, you've got a certified disinfectant in there, you spray it on the surface, you leave it for the appropriate kill time, and then you come back with a microfiber towel and wipe it. You have then used a manual approach to killing the virus. There are also mechanical approaches, everything from a typical garden sprayer that'll apply the disinfectant mechanically to a surface, to fogging systems. Some go through your HVAC systems, and others go through electrostatic type sprayers, which look very similar to generic mechanical sprayers, but they include a electrostatic charge that we're going to talk about in just a minute that gives you some advantages. Okay, so Pat mentioned we're going to talk about some emerging trends. Since this pandemic has been around in the last, I can't believe I'm saying this, I think it's been 9 months now since we've actively been combating this thing. There have been all sorts of emerging trends in the cleaning industry. And you may have heard of some of these may be new to you, but they're out there. So for instance, there are surface coatings. Some of you have seen them. I've seen them in a lot of public spaces, not in the buildings we clean, but in other spaces. It's a coating, almost like a plastic sheet that you can apply to a door handle or a commonly touched surface. And it has claims for a persisting kill claim. In other words, as long as this is on the surface, it'll kill the virus. There are other products that are being worked on right now that you can apply to a surface, and the claim is, unlike a plastic sheet that gets applied to a surface, these are liquids that you can spray on a surface that form a gel that also provides some ongoing protection. That's another emerging trend with a surface coating. I will say that I've not yet, and they may be extremely effective and they may work and you may have them in your building and you may swear by them. At this point, I have not seen any EPA certification on a surface coating that provides ongoing disinfecting qualities. Most disinfectants work perfectly well, but what that means is they kill the virus that's present at the time of application. Then the very next person who comes along and sneezes or touches that surface, who may be infected, has once again infected that surface. So generally speaking, there's no ongoing benefit to a disinfectant. These claims for the surface coatings are that it does just that it does provide ongoing protection. I've not seen the data yet, and I've not seen the certification. And if someone else is on here who has that information, I'd love to hear about it, because I know there are many things in development that have that claim, different stages of development. Other things we've heard about are UV lights. That's been in use in a couple of different isolated scenarios over the years. Medical facilities, food facilities have used EV lights for years, and they now have claimed that UV lights are effective. Certain types of UV lights are effective against the coronavirus. Those come in a couple of different flavors. If you built a new building and you were smart enough to put in the wiring, the connections for the UV lights, that's great. There are also portable UV lights that can be wheeled into various rooms and areas. Again, they are effective. There's just limited coverage. We don't usually have UV lights everywhere. There's an emerging scenario with HVAC systems. I know this group might be particularly interested in this. Different approaches that either buddy up with your existing HVAC systems or require some new equipment to be included in your existing HVAC system. These approaches purport to not only clean surfaces, but clean the air. So if the virus is spreading person to person in spores through the air, these HVAC systems claim to not just eliminate the virus on the surfaces that they eventually land on, but to get the virus that's suspended in the air. Again, I'm not an HVAC specialist, but I bet you a bunch of you on this call are familiar with that. And if you're not, you can do some research on that. A couple of other things I like to talk about, because they're frequently asked questions of me, is, hey, we've got the right disinfectant, we've got the right approach. What the heck should I be disinfecting? I've got a big building here. Do I have to disinfect every surface, every horizontal surface, every vertical surface, what's recommended. And what we recommend is you need to first identify all commonly touched surfaces. You don't need to protect someone from themselves. So for instance, if I'm sitting in my office, I'm the only one who comes in here. I'm the only one who uses my phone, my keyboard, my light switch. Chances are I do not need to spend the money or time to disinfect my office because I don't need to protect me from myself. What you really want to do is find all those commonly touched surfaces out in common areas, conference rooms, restrooms, elevators, staircases, lobby and reception areas, training rooms. That's where the risk of transmission obviously is high, and that's where you want to focus your efforts, in those commonly touched surfaces. Again, at this point, I'm guessing you're all experts on this stuff because we've all heard about it, unfortunately, for many, many months. The last thing that I'm going to mention on this slide is that I've talked about a number of different approaches that you can use. Please understand that when used properly and in accordance with the manufacturer's suggestions, and as long as the EPA has certified that that approach works, they all work equally well. So there's no truth to the fact that one kills the virus any better than another. All approaches, when used properly with an EPA certified disinfectant, kill the virus equally well. It's just a matter of how it's applied, how efficient it can be, how expensive, frankly, the application is. But as long as you can bank on that EPA certification, they all are equally effective if people are using the approach properly. Here are some great pictures of guys, of a guy in a full hazmat suit. When you're using a fogger, a mister, electrostatic sprayer, most of the disinfectants, including the disinfectant we happen to use, are totally safe for building inhabitants as well as for the people who are applying the disinfectant. So there's really no need, when we provide the service, and I'm sure others provide it, there's no need for a full hazmat suit. People are sometimes surprised that we don't show up in the big yellow hazmat suit. The product we use and what most of our folks in our industry use is completely safe for human beings. It's just deadly for the virus. And I believe there are going to be some others later on in this presentation talking specifically about some of these other approaches. So in the interest of time, I know others are going to be presenting, and I've rambled for quite a bit. I think this is the time for Q&A if you have any for me.
Hey, Lavina, I think if you want to unmute and get started, we'll just move on to you. And then just to let everybody know, we did have an electrostatic scheduled, but unfortunately, they're not on the call. But if you have any one for information, I'm sure everybody presenting today can help you with that as well as myself. So Lavina, it's all yours.
Thank you. I just want to thank Pat and the BOAC board for inviting me to present today. I just have a short PowerPoint and a video. It won't take up too much of everybody's time. Kelly, it says that, okay. There we go.
We can see it.
All right, perfect. Okay, good. So in June of last year, in the midst of the pandemic and everything that was going on, just so many unknowns about what we would be facing in the future, Belfour introduced a new partnership with a company called BioProtect Technologies. And a new product that we were going to be distributing, and I want to share that with you today. It's just, it's a new way of thinking about cleaning and disinfection. So I want to thank Jay for his comments on different types of cleaning. So BioProtect is the name of the product that I'm going to be going over today and some of its capabilities. So BioProtect is water-based. It has no color, no smell, and the research on it does show that it provides continuous protection for up to 90 days. This is not a chemical disinfection product. It does use a mechanical kill process, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more in depth in a minute. Unlike chemical cleaners, it does remain effective after it's dry. And so it keeps and it protects surfaces in between cleanings. It's non-corrosive, non-flammable, and it does not emit VOC vapors. It is EPA registered, and I have the registration number if anybody is interested in going and looking up the information on it. Safe for food surfaces, safe around children and pets. It is completely biodegradable, and it is it's considered to be environmentally friendly. So how it works, before we apply BioProtect, we would actually go in and we would sanitize the whole area using a chemical disinfectant. And then BioProtect can be applied either through a spray or through a fog application. Once it hits the surface, it forms a covalent bond, and it creates what they refer to as a nano layer of spikes on every surface, both porous and non-porous. So the nano spikes are at a molecular level, so this isn't something that you can see or feel, and they call it a microbiostatic antimicrobial coating, which is just a really fancy way of saying that it is positively charged. So it draws microbes out of the air and by basically magnetically attracting them. So once the microbes come in contact with this layer, it ruptures the membrane, prevents them from reproducing, and causes the microbe to die without using any harmful chemicals. So that's just the basic breakdown of how it works. The top link here is actually for BioClean Technologies. So you can go to their website and look at the data that they have and how it works and the information that they've provided. And then I have a video that I want to show that just goes over the capabilities of this new technology and kind of what we can expect to see in the future as you know, it begins to spread and they're able to move it forward and kind of use it just to advance this type of thinking and this way of thinking about disinfection. So give me 1 second. Make sure I'm sharing the computer sound here. There we go.
Dr. Richard Besser reports on ABC World News.
These bugs are getting stronger and there aren't any new drugs coming quickly.
CNN reports concern over drug-resistant staph infections, as does ABC Local News about the spread of superbugs. And Dr. Sanjay Gupta's CNN Health Report says that hospital-acquired infections are of grave concern.
In the next 20 years, 30 years, there will be a pandemic, and it will have the potential to bring humanity to its knees.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. we've invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. The WHO is funded to monitor epidemics, but not to do these things I talked about.
Traditional cleaning products are responsible for much of this problem. They have been using toxins to control the spread of harmful bacteria for decades. These are no longer the most effective way to kill bacteria. First of all, these toxins dry out or get used up in the killing process, so new bacteria continue to grow. But even worse yet, bacteria build up an immunity to those toxins, creating the need for stronger and stronger doses that become so strong that they create a danger to both the environment and to us living in the environment. And that problem is known as creating antimicrobial resistance, bacteria that is resistant to the very toxins that we use to kill them. If we don't stop using toxins and find a better way, scientists are warning us that we could be back in a pre-antibiotic world where people died of a common cold because our viruses are resistant to the toxins we're using to kill them. But there is a solution. What if there was an entire system using a variety of patented technologies that we could rely on that would protect us in every aspect of our lives? A group of scientific technologies that, when applied, would not just sanitize our hands, but purify them. Provide a non-poisonous way to protect every surface that we touch from dangerous bacteria. Provide a laundry softener and textile treatment so powerful that our clothes would stay protected from bacteria after wearing them for over a dozen times. And a system that even provides an antimicrobial surface coating and protective barrier that remains bonded to the product for its entire useful life. After years of scientific research combined with the innovation of business, we bring you the BioProtect Us system, the future of clean. Our system doesn't rely on poisons to kill the harmful microorganisms that crawl by the hundreds of millions over every surface that we touch, over our clothes, on our bodies, and in our food. We breathe in harmful bacteria, and they creep into our bodies in many other ways, and we get sick. Sometimes when the exposure to a strain of bacteria is bad enough, we can even die. And sometimes the bacteria have built up such strong resistance to any toxins we use that we refer to these as superbugs, a serious and potentially unstoppable danger. How does the BioProtect Us system work? We use scientifically tested, patented technologies and solutions that create a durable bond with any surface and can even be manufactured right into textiles, plastics, and metals by the manufacturer to last for its entire useful life. Once we apply our technologies to either porous and non-porous surfaces or apply our technology as a surface coating in manufacturing, a tenacious bond is created, protecting our surfaces persistently and continuously. This bond is made up of hundreds of millions of molecular chains of carbon and nitrogen that are connected to each other to form a microscopic rod that actually ruptures the microorganisms to kill them. The positively charged rod naturally attracts the negatively charged germs. As they hit the carbon chain, the germs are electrocuted and disintegrate. No toxins are used to kill the harmful bacteria. Where do you use the BioProtect Us system? Your home, your workplace, your grocery store, restaurants, hospitals, senior living homes, doctor's offices, daycare centers. Every surface should be protected against harmful bacteria with the BioProtect Us system. The future of clean. A ViaClean Technologies product.
So, as you can see, it's a pretty exciting technology. I feel like we're just kind of at the beginning of looking at ways that we can address issues with cleaning and killing microbes without chemicals. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or you can reach out to me. I've got my contact information here for you. I'm happy to provide additional
When applied to a surface or material, BioProtect forms an antimicrobial coating which kills and inhibits future growth of micro.
Just kept playing without me. All right, so anyway, I just want to thank you guys for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them now.
Okay, I think we'll move on to Sarah, Steve, and Rich on UVGI lighting technologies, and then we'll do a question and answer for everybody afterwards. Thanks. Sarah?
Can you hear us? Hello?
I can hear you.
Very good.
Great, we'll start then. Hello, everyone. I'm Rich Fair with Conservative Watt Lighting. We want to thank BOAC for having us on today. Joining me, of course, is Sarah Hannes, as you've already seen, and Steve Katavas are both the principals of Conservative Watt. And Conservative Watt's been in business for 40 years, roughly at 8th Avenue and I-25. And today we're going to discuss upper air and surface disinfection, UV luminaires. The topic is a huge topic. It's going to hit some So the technology we're going to discuss involving germicidal UV luminaires is a line of sight technology. And because coronavirus is transmission is generally known to be airborne, we have to address the two technologies. This slide shows the electromagnetic spectrum, and visible light starts at about 400 nanometers, goes through 750 nanometers. There are manufacturers that have equipment that produces UVB. UVB can be effective against bacteria, spores, and molds, and that type of thing, but does not affect viruses that require a shorter wavelength. So ideally, a 254 nanometer dose of UVC, and we're talking UVC being 100 to 280 nanometers, inactivates the SARS-CoV-2, this coronavirus, and it destroys the DNA, RNA aspect. So the products that Sarah's going to go over with you utilizes low pressure mercury vapor discharge technology. So it's very simply, they come with replacement lamps that have 9,000 hour life. This is proven technology. It's been around for decades, since the 80s, the early 80s. And today, still being used and used effectively. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Sarah for a few minutes, and I'll be back with you.
Hi, everybody. Some of the applications that we are all considering and thinking about are, common areas, meeting rooms, office spaces, all of that. And we're starting to see the more and more options of fixtures that you can employ into those spaces. There's two strategies. One is to disinfect the air, and one is to disinfect the surface. Because coronavirus is airborne, that's of particular interest. How do we disinfect the air? Two ways to do that. You can do it indirectly, and what's on the screen here are some sample fixtures. So at the top is a ceiling mounted fixture, or the one below it, a wall mounted fixture. And there's louvers on that so that they are protected and safe, because you have to mitigate the line of sight. So UV, I'm getting off track here a little bit. These are all work to disinfect the air. They work in an indirect way. You could use these in an occupied space. So what's interesting about this is people could be in this space while this technology is being utilized. And that's why it's an indirect. Another way that you can disinfect is through direct light line of sight. Would you use a strip fixture, a high bay type fixture, but for surfaces, but you would not have any occupancy in the space. So there's a lot of considerations as we're looking at this technology and how do you use it. Of course, there are going to be controls because there are safety issues and we have to mitigate if there are occupants in this space, or the dosage that we're delivering and so on. This just gives you kind of a preview of some of the different fixtures that we might start to be putting into our conference rooms, our offices. And all of these fixtures, again, just to reiterate what Rich was saying, have replaceable lamps and ballast. So these are systems, building systems we can put in place that we can have then ongoing maintenance on. We've seen some products that are almost temporary. Once they're used up, you can no longer use that fixture and you have to buy a new one. So now Rich is going to kind of talk about some of the safety issues that we need to consider.
So everyone knows that UVC is harmful to eyes and skin. So, you know, we know that this technology can be very safe, providing that you have proper application, proper installation, you use reputable manufacturers. You have to be cautious, but it's certainly effective, very effective. We went through this period when, you know, I would call it the LED revolution, when LEDs were new at the beginning. There was a myriad of failed products. There was companies using very poor drivers and chips, upstart companies that would be in business for maybe 2 or 3 years, go out of business and leave everybody stuck with some bad product. And so we are moving through this technology cautiously, and we're using our manufacturers that we know have a proven track record. They've been around a while. We utilize the reps in Denver. We have some very good reps in Denver representing these larger manufacturers that can come out to visit you. And there's a little bit of a process that we have to look at the space, maybe do a drawing and take some notes of obstructions and so forth. And after selling the product, then we come back and we actually commission the area by making sure and doing testing that everything is working properly. The regulation, standard certification, they're still underway right now. They're not finalized. So again, we have to be cautious for that reason.
There's a lot of product out there right now that don't necessarily fall in line. And some of what we are showing here is some of this questionable product.
You can go on YouTube and you can see some of these products that are either totally ineffective, have very false claims, or are being used in a dangerous fashion. And again, a myriad of products. And there's, you've probably heard of some incidents on the news regarding them. So we're saying be cautious going forward with UVC technology. We want to use companies that have a good track record. And I think then on finalize, Sarah's got a few more points.
Yeah, so the next, if you were going to start to engage a UV system into your space, there's some steps that you'd have to take. There's pretty extensive pre-install steps. I mean, they're gonna fully audit the space, the finish of the space, the occupancy use, the airflow, humidity, and then design a layout. you'll have it installed by a certified installer and have post-install inspections, as Rich alluded to. All this sounds complicated, and I agree that it is complicated, but this, in the most simplest sense, this is a tried and true technology that works. It's being reintroduced to the market into general applications, and that's where we're at now. We're starting to see the majors bring fixtures that we can put into use, as you saw. This is a layer of disinfection. Certainly, we agree, and every manufacturer that we've evaluated agrees this is a part of what you would do. You're still going to clean, you're still going to do, you know, other safety practices. So this wouldn't be one single solution, of course. And given all the confusion and the complexity, we strongly encourage you to rely on the strong industry partners that are out there. We'd love to be able to give you any resources that we have, connect you with any vendors or more information. This is a very complicated subject of which we could probably do a 10-hour PowerPoint, and we have tried to boil it down to the key things. And just again, want to reiterate, there are safety concerns, but it's not something that should be disregarded. It's something that should be considered in your space. And if you would like more information, please reach out to us. Thank you for this opportunity. And I just generally have to say, I cannot wait until we get into regular face-to-face meetings. These are so hard.
Well said.
I agree.
Well, thank you, Sarah and Rich and Steve, wherever you're standing. Thank you as well. Kelly, I didn't see any chat questions. If anybody out there has a question, if you want to unmute and ask or put it in the chat window. I do have one question for, I've been asked a couple of times regarding UV light. So I've seen, as you go into Home Depot, there are some handheld devices that are UV type lighting. And the questions I have gotten are, my mask has been through the wash machine 10,000 times. Is there a way with a UV GI light? Is there a handheld out there that can clean the mask so I can use it tomorrow or in an hour? Or is that something I need to take to the hospital and put in their UV filtration
I would keep
devices?
washing your mask.
Yeah.
These handheld disinfected lighting, they have a pretty bad rap. There's some manufacturers that won't touch them. Some of our major guys, just because of the liabilities, they can so easily be misused that they're deemed as fairly dangerous. And not only that, but if you go on YouTube and you look at them, there's all kinds of them on YouTube, and many of them have been attacked because they don't do what they say they do. They're not effective. I'm certain there are some that are effective, but the ones that are effective that produce UVC may be also dangerous if they're misused. And there's 100 ways that you can misuse them. So we're not proponents, and that's not our business on the handhelds. You know, we're more into the permanent installation.
We see a lot of them that don't even list the proper nanometers. They say UV, but it's of a certain nanometer that is irrelevant to coronavirus. There's a lot of false adverts out there.
Very good. I know my answer. Any other questions?